So we finally have clarification on what Cloud was saying at the end of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in the Forgotten Capital in that incredibly pivotal scene. Now, just a heads up, this video obviously will contain spoilers, so if you have not finished Rebirth, you might want to bookmark this video for later and come back to it once you finish the game. So just to kind of, get back up to speed, at the end of Rebirth, obviously, we lose Aerith. She is killed. And the way that scene plays out is a little confusing because we see two different scenarios, essentially. We see one where Cloud is holding Aerith and he seems relatively fine and composed. And in the other scene, he's crying. He's broken down and he's saying something, but we can't hear what he's saying. The audio has been removed from that scene. And it was a little confusing to figure out what the heck he was saying. But now, according to Nojima and Toriyama, we now know what Cloud was saying. Now, this information comes to us from Audrey on Twitter, who continues to diligently work on translating the Ultimania for Rebirth, and we now officially have the answers as to what was going on. Audrey writes, "We finally have clarity on what Cloud is saying in the scene at the Forgotten Capital. Nojima and Toriyama reveal that Cloud is saying his OG lines in the scene where you see him speak but do not hear him. The lines, 'My mouth is dry, my eyes are burning.' Even if you can't hear him, if you played the OG, you would know what he's saying." Toriyama says he can't say much about that scene since it's up for interpretation, but what he can say is when they asked Nomura for advice on how to portray this, he said to include Cloud saying the OG lines as a flashback. Now, after reading that, I had a huge duh moment to myself where I realized, well, duh, yeah, that's what he would be saying. How did we not know that? Because in that scenario where Aerith dies and Cloud can't save her, it's going to play out how it did in the original game, with him mourning her, him crying, him delivering that incredibly powerful speech after she's been taken away from him. And these lines were 100% recorded, and we are going to hear them in Remake Part 3. Why? Well, Cody Christian, the voice actor of Cloud, already recorded these lines, and he goes in detail about them in an interview that we covered recently. So looking back at this interview with Screen Rant, when I covered it back in the day, I purposely avoided this section of the article because I didn't want any spoilers for myself or other people because I hadn't finished the game at that point. But now that I finished it, I went back and read it and I realized, holy crap, he actually already recorded all this stuff. So the question that they asked Cody was there anything that he remembers being difficult or emotional to record? Which leads Cody to respond by saying, "I feel like the question is guided to the answer that I'm going to give you, so well done." He laughs. Aerith's final scene, was a very powerful, emotional scene. It's a scene that rocked the scene, if you will, of just video game culture, honestly. It was such a devastating reveal in the first, so obviously we stayed true to that, and that moment plays out. And I remember the recording process of it. I treated it just as I treat most of these performances, but especially that one. I treated it as if I was on a film set, as if I was closing my eyes and holding her in my arms and really living that moment. And I even feel stuff coming up in me now talking about it. I can speak to you about it now as if I was there recording it. And I remember we were talking about it. I remember taking a good 5-10 minutes just to get into a headspace to go and record everything, because we did it all in one shot. There was just a lot of attention. It was a lot of focus. The mood shifted. Usually it's very light. We're joking around, we're having a good time, or we're getting great work done. But that one, everyone that day, myself, our translator Ben Sabin, was in the session, our engineer Justin Kozonis, and my director Kirk. Everyone just felt the shift in tone. It was a somber mood, and everyone approached it as such, and treated it with the respect and professionalism it deserved. So I hope, even though it's rattling to most, I hope that it's well received, because it wasn't something that was just skimmed through or skimmed over. So obviously at that point Cody hadn't played the game, so he wasn't aware of how that scene was going to be depicted, but we were robbed of all of that. All of that really great voice work and performance from Cody. The death of Aerith, her burial, that was all taken away from us. And that's all by design. The more I watch the ending, the more developer interviews I read from the Ultimania, or just in general, the more fan theories that I absorb, the more this all makes sense. This is one big meta script, which some people will like, some people won't. Not everyone's into the meta stuff, but us as the player, we experience things as Cloud experiences them. What Cloud omits, it's omitted from us. What he believes, we're gonna believe, for the most part. And we were robbed of the death of Aerith. We were robbed of her burial and saying a proper goodbye to her. Now there is the scene where Cloud and Aerith have that one final date, and they're going around the slums and just trying to have fun. And as the player, and even as Cloud, we don't really know what's going on until it's too late. At the very end of that date, we realize, oh, this is her funeral for Rebirth. She was saying goodbye to us this entire time, and we didn't know it. Once she pushes Cloud away and we see Sephiroth walk into the church, that's it for her. She's gone. And that's what she was trying to tell us as the player and as Cloud. She's saying goodbye. And when it comes to Aerith actually dying in the burial, we were robbed of all of that. And that is a very ballsy move to make. And that's all by design. So we're going to pull from the Shinra Archaeology Department, who is also translating the Ultimania, because they have more words on why the developers chose to depict this scene the way they did. Nomura says that in the original FF7, in order to depict the cruel loss of someone you cherish, they had Cloud be a bystander as Sephiroth killed her. In Rebirth, they wanted to fight back against Destiny and have Cloud make an effort to parry Sephiroth's attack. However, when you actually lose someone you cherish in the real world, you weren't able to accept it right away. Rebirth strives to depict that inability to accept the loss of someone precious to you. Cloud's psychic interference reflects this state of mind. And I really like that. I think it's brilliant. And again, not everyone's going to like that, but how they're taking this theme of loss and how it happens in real life and playing out the same way in the game is honestly kind of brilliant to me. And again, doing things this way is incredibly ballsy because there was some backlash to this. People were upset that we didn't get to say goodbye to Aerith, but we are most likely going to get that in part 3. And I think if done right, I'm echoing myself here, it's going to be incredibly sad and really well done because we're finally going to see, once Cloud gets his mind right and he puts his memories back in place, we're going to see him actually relive the death of Aerith. We're going to see how he reacts. We're going to hear that speech from him. And I know that speech and performance from Cody is going to be brilliant because he's done such a fantastic job so far playing Cloud and adding so much nuance and depth to the character that I cannot wait to hear the emotion in that scene, especially the way he describes the mood of when they were recording that scene. He's someone who really puts his all into everything, and based on how he's describing it, it sounds incredibly sad and painful. And in part 3, once again, when Cloud gets right, everything's going to come flooding back. He's going to remember who he is, what his purpose was in Nibelheim, how everything played out properly, but he's also going to see, oh my god, Aerith died. I blocked that out. I chose to not accept her death, and now he's going to relive it, and we are finally going to get to see, at the same time as Cloud, what actually happened, and her goodbye, her official real death, will be in part 3 now instead of Rebirth. So again, it's incredibly ballsy to do something like this because it can backfire, but I think, myself included, a lot of people do trust the process here with the developers and what they're doing. They put so much love and care and effort into everything we've played in Remake and Rebirth, and again, these developers don't do things just to do things. Everything they do has a purpose. And they were very aware that they didn't want to do a straight up one-to-one remake of FF7. They wanted to try something a little bit different to keep things fresh and new and exciting for themselves as developers. And I think taking loss as it happens in real life and replicating it in the game is really smart because that's often how it does play out in real life. You know, not to get too somber, but I remember when my grandpa on my mom's side passed away, it just happened. I didn't get to say goodbye to him. We got the phone call that it had happened and we went over to go see him, and that was it. I never got a proper goodbye with him. I remember losing my dog when I was a little kid. You know, I went to school that day and then I came home and he was gone. And as they describe death and loss in all of these different interviews, the developers, that's how it happens. Loss isn't something that you can prepare for. It just kind of happens, and the person or the animal that you love the most is gone. They're taken away from you. And choosing to depict it that way in Rebirth, I think it's pretty smart. But that's just me. And of course, as you know, oftentimes the first stage of grief is denial. And Cloud is full-blown in denial that Aerith is dead. And even some people are believing she's not dead. So my hat is off to the developers. My hat is off to Nojima, who's writing all this stuff. I think it's brilliant. And man, the wait for part 3 is going to be excruciating, but I think the payoff is going to be 100% worth it. So with that being said, I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of the way that the developers are handling all of this stuff? What do you think of the reveal of what Cloud was actually saying in that scene? Let me know down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.